can affirm that if I have to pay the ultimate political cost for my government's decision to work with the Stanford Group for the economic benefit of the people and nation, I will have no problem with that. I will now go further, and I'll have no problem going back to the polls. I will have no problem going back to the polls on the government decision to go local with the upgrade and expansion of VC Bird Airport and the Allen Stanford Alliance. Those are the words of the member for St. John's Rural West.
Is that true?
Yes. Those are the proud, defiant words of the big man. The big man, Winston Baldwin Spencer, which will be heard again and again in the public interest over the next 14 days, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I find it most intriguing that we actually recall here today after the dissolution of Parliament 3 weeks ago to address what can only be described as the ultimate political cost, that Baldwin Spencer and the UPP will have to pay on March the 12th for their incompetence in dealing not just with Allen Stanford, Madam Speaker, but with everything, everyone, the hospital, people die in the cricket stadium, the taxes. And for the record, Madam Speaker, we have no issue in principle with the acquisition of Stanford lands. Let me say so before I close. In principle, we have no issue or any other lands for public purpose. But Madam Speaker, the purpose must be genuine. It must be real. It must not be a poppy show. It must not be a charade. It must not be a front to score cheap political football in here. It cannot, Madam Speaker, be a hot ticket item on their political agenda to try and win the election at all costs, because they'll lose. They'll be defeated. So, Madam Speaker, we on this side, we are completely opposed to the timing of this move because it violates settled practice in our jurisdiction, in our own parliament, which today is disgracefully contravening the rule of law by moving such an opportunistic manner. It is opportunistic, Mr. Prime Minister. We don't have a problem with it if the man is convicted. We don't have a problem if he has criminal charges against him. And if the court say, yes, he's convicted, but let due process take place. We are a better country than that, Mr. PM. I cannot, Madam Speaker, and I will not support this resolution at this time. Maybe later down. Let me repeat that, Madam Speaker. Maybe later down. And I humbly suggest, Madam Speaker, that proper consideration of it should be deferred, Mr. Prime Minister, to sometime after the United States courts have determined the fate of Allen Stanford. Not you and Justin Simon to do that today. It is wrong. It is blatantly, vulgarly wrong, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you.
What time is it? Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, honorable members of this House, fellow citizens and residents, I trust that we can be honest with ourselves today. And we can recognize that the reason that we are today in this Parliament is because the United Progressive Party sincerely believes that the difficulties facing Allen Stanford will turn around its fortunes in an election which it's on the course to lose. Another dark day has befallen this country, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Another dark day has befallen all of us in Antigua and Barbuda, Madam Speaker.
Real dark.
Under the reckless and incompetent government of the UPP. For decades, Madam Speaker, this UPP has displayed its incompetence with grand arrogance Let us cast our minds back.
Members of the gallery, please. Honorable Member for St. Peter, you may continue.
Madam Speaker, I wish not to be disturbed by the members of the other side and by the gallery. Madam Speaker, let us cast our minds back to the Half Moon Bay fiasco, when the UPP played naked politics and they disrupted the plans of the Antigua Labour Party government to develop a 5-star hotel. Remember that, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, this entire UPP collection of former MPs before today took absolutely no step to protect the depositors or Antiguan jobs. They must have known what the SEC was going to do. They must have known. But not a word. Not a word from the Attorney General, not a word from the Prime Minister of this country, not a word from the Minister of Finance, Madam Speaker. No warning, no precaution. The offshore financial sector of Antigua and Barbuda, Madam Speaker, has received a blow, a tremendous blow, from all the negative publicity in all the international media. Yet, Madam Speaker, this UPP government has done absolutely nothing to protect the integrity of the jurisdiction. Other banks, Madam Speaker, in the offshore sector have had requests for withdrawal of funds and many expressions of nervousness. Yet, the UPP did not even make a statement to the international community and to the many clients of the offshore banks in Antigua and Barbuda under our jurisdiction. Another manifestation, Madam Speaker, of the UPP incompetence. Several days passed and nothing from the UPP, nothing. The deafening silence of the Minister of Finance, the deafening silence of the Attorney General, except two ministers or two ministers of government going around the country telling people, withdraw your money from Stanford Bank.
Would it?
Reckless and senseless, Madam Speaker.
Would it?
Madam Speaker,
Would it?
this sort of event, Madam Speaker,
Honorable members.
This sort of event never occurred during the Antigua Labour Party administration. In fact, Madam Speaker, the Paris-based Financial Action Task Force and the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, they did not blacklist Antigua and Barbuda. Instead, Madam Speaker, Antigua and Barbuda's regulation was given a clean record and was used as an example for others. Therefore, any untoward activity, Madam Speaker, in which Stanford might have been involved, let the record show it did not take place under the ALP's watch. It happened right under the noses of the UPP. Right under the noses of the UPP. The critical question, Madam Speaker, the critical question is whose eyes and whose ears were closed? Who fell asleep at the wheel? Who is it, Madam Speaker, who exposed the people of this land to this trauma of losing money and jobs? It was not us.